Hello, I'm Chris Flisher, and welcome to Turning of the Wheel, an intelligent, lively discussion on astrology, art, and adventure. Timing is everything, and as the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed. Join me as I explore the current planetary alignments and offer insights for coping with change. Educational, informative, enlightening, the Turning of the Wheel is a welcome pause in your daily swirl of constant change. Through intelligent discourse, inspired guests, and educational segments, I will help to enlighten your knowledge of astrology and guide you to accept change as the great wheel of life turns. Call in with your questions and speak with some of the greatest visionaries in the time-tested practice of astrology. Turning of the Wheel, Astrology, Art, and Adventure with Chris Flisher, each week on Turning of the Wheel podcast. Hello and welcome to Turning of the Wheel. My name's Chris Flisher. As you know, this is a show about astrology, art, and spiritual adventure. And as we look back over the course of our last year, we have seen quite a bit of changes, many of which were pointed out by astrologers years ago. We were all talking about this a long time ago. We said this is going to be a difficult time because of the way we had the Saturn-Neptune square that went on. We saw two characters on the political stages that looked very similar to both of those planets' archetypal energies and stuff like that. But we're looking forward to 2017. We have to address the future with a sense of optimism, hope, and try to find the silver in the cloud, in the cloud, silver lining in the cloud rather, so that we can move forward and try to get the best. Because sometimes difficult times often bring out the best in people. So I've got a great guest coming on in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about that. I do want to remind you about my newsletter, which goes out every Sunday afternoon, in that I do a brief overview of the mundane characteristics that are happening on the planet that affect all of us. And then I break it out into individual signs, and I encourage you to read your sun sign and your rising sign each week to get a more thorough picture of what to expect in your week to come. You can sign up for my newsletter from my website, turningofthewheel.com or chrisflisher.com. Both of them will get you there. And I encourage you to do that. People have been very kind and have found quite a bit of value in what I've been able to produce. My guest today is another astrologer from Connecticut. Her name is Agneta Borstein, and we're going to be discussing the major eclipses that are coming up in 2017. We've got a number of them coming up, as we always do, and we're going to be discussing that. Her website is agnetaborstein.com, AgnetaBorstein.com, agnetaborstein.com. So, Agneta, we haven't spoken in many years, but it's great to have you back on the show. Welcome to Turning the Wheel.
Thank you for inviting me again, and I'm good. You can hear me good, right?
I can. I certainly can, yes. Yeah. So as we look forward, we have a couple of major eclipses coming up. The first one we have falls on February the 10th at 22 degrees Leo. It's a lunar eclipse. And, of course, the sun will be at 22 degrees Aquarius. So that bodes well, and I think it's important that we preface this conversation by saying many of us fear the idea of eclipse. Many of us hear the name full moon. They hear the name retrograde. They hear the name eclipse, and they run for the hills. But oftentimes, eclipses can manifest remarkably, wonderfully rich, life-changing experiences that can be incredibly wonderful. And we need not go to the dark side, especially given what we've been through this last year. Let's try to keep things on the up and up and look at where we could go in a positive light. So let's discuss the first one, Agneta, and welcome to Turning the Wheel. It's great to have you back on.
Yes, that's great to hear your voice again, and it's my pleasure to be with you again. Yeah. That's one thing that people, of course, in the olden days, people will run away from eclipses, but now we seek them. I seek them out as an empowerment for positive reinforcement by using astrology, because when they move into this new signs of Aquarius and Leo, even though there was one that was a little confusing in mid-August 2016, that now we are moving into the Leo, the creative force, and then Aquarius is also the subconscious of mankind. And no matter what happened during the election, no matter what happened in our life, we're still moving forward for individuality. As the next eclipse season, as they are, there will be more, both 2017 and 18.
Right.
So that's part of it, and just by how we time things, because the sun and the moon is really so intimate connected by the spirit and the soul. So the more we use that as maybe prepare, if you know that you have a 22 degree either Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus, that will empower your visions, your endurance, your maybe intriguing into what your missions are about, to continue that which you thought it would go left and you went to right, or you went to right and you went to left. So it's all that positive way of looking at empowerment. Anything in astrology is, because we can't really avoid them.
No, we can't avoid them, but I think what we can do, I think that what my view is that if we are forewarned about where we see things happening, we can consciously make a step to turn. I mean, we always have an option at any point in time. We can view things negatively, we can view things positively. I think that the eclipses bring to light the opportunity to have a revelation, a shift, a change in the way you are as an individual, your role. It's a wonderful time for people to say have birth. You know, I think of them as a opportunity for beginnings and as a transition point. Transition is a difficult word. I think people get confused or fearful when they hear the word transition, because they think, oh my gosh, that means a bad thing. But I want to remind people that a transition is the same thing as the end of a pregnancy. It is the end of a pregnancy brings about a baby, which is a wonderfully beautiful experience. So that's how we should present this, I think, and be optimistic.
Right. It is always anytime I sometimes do work as there's two sides to each coin, and I always do the positive side, because the negative side is what people say, don't say anything that is scary. Well, life in itself has challenges. That's the beauty of life, and using the eclipses in this year of 2017 will also perhaps the endurance that we go through in the August, they come back in a different degree, but quite close to 22. We're going to talk about that, the Great American Eclipse, later on, Chris, because that's really exciting.
Yes.
Yes. But
you know, I think that these events, you know, when we think of, we all know that life can be a challenge, and there's never a time in life when it isn't a challenge. And so therefore, we need to step into that rather than run from it. And it's through the challenges that we really learn to grow and evolve and become more centered and more confident in our lives going forward. We have to address these conflicts. It's just a part of life. We have good days, we have bad days, but we have to embrace them with a sense of opportunity and potential rather than running the other way. I think we have the ability to do that. So, and with the moon, of course, the moon does strike to our emotional core. That is more of our emotional fabric of which we draw. And the eclipse might be a very powerfully wonderful time. You were telling me that you fell in love on an eclipse, right? Or got married on an eclipse, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you know how we always have our little stories, how we have our own stories and personal stories in astrology. But 2 years before this eclipse happened, I was like, maybe I should meet somebody and, life stories. It won't bore you my life. Yes, so I timed my marriage, 1988, during an eclipse, 9 o'clock at night, and so far so good, because it's a true commitment.
Yeah.
I always like to remind that the moon and the sun is basically a soul search in the moon. We go deeper should we desire to seek soul search or meditation and healing. That goes very much with that dance of the moon.
Right.
And then the Aquarius is also the subconscious to maybe mind our own business at times, so that the consciousness, of course, Aquarius is masses and humanity and all that, but we also have to take care of our own little backyard and then have a goal, a mission. And this, to me, would be very strong intention steps, like a little bit before. It's always good before February 10th. Take time out to say, like, well, is it going to be good news or bad news? Well, in our individual own little life, it's always positive, because that's part of the personal growth. When we get into mundane astrology, and there's certain energies in both Obama's chart and the President-elect Trump, but we're not going to go into the political point, I feel, in this segment. But they're very close call, because on February 10th, there is a new president for a few weeks, and then what, or 1 month. So he's very hit with his Leo ascendant, and we hope for the better, and changes will come. They always do, but we have to remind ourselves that the moon is, like you said, the emotions, how we feel, how we sense. And any type of full moon is beneficial to take time out and do a little dance at times.
Right. And I actually think that this particular one is sort of driving us as a collective body of people to reconsider some of the way that we approach the world, because it is about Aquarius. Aquarius is the collective. It is about the greater good of the planet. And I think that this election, more than any other one, is sort of driving that point forward, because it's making us all focus on where are we going? What are our real choices, and how are we manifesting them, and what is it going to look like for us, and how do we really play this out? And I think it's important for us to have this. It's a good time to take stock, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it's a very good time to take stock, because we really have to sort of reset our priorities, perhaps, right? Don't you think? I think it's important.
Right, I do think so, and especially in these degrees, that's for all of us.
Right.
That's part of, what we experienced in 2016 kind of overlaps with this Jupiter guy, but that's another segment. But they continue. Jupiter squares Pluto and Jupiter opposed Uranus. So if your personal opinion is not accepted, then maybe there is another purpose in your personal life to find a better outlet, creative outlet, to help humanity at large because of the Aquarius.
And I think that if we didn't have a moment where the universe got our attention and we were surprised, if we didn't have those moments, we might never make the opportunity to change. But I think that these are reminders that are loud. They speak loudly, these reminders, and when they do, they compel us to change.
Correct. Yeah, I had this another personal little story is that it was I'm Swedish. Maybe some hear my little accent left. So I was neutral. I could not become an American citizen because I thought it was odd to vote on a movie star. I might have liked Reagan, but I am saying you can't go back to neutral. You need to find your passion, your mission, but maybe not everybody else care. So we have to have that creative outlet with this eclipse that will follow through later on. There is more to that, but what I want to point out, the next February 26th eclipse, which is an
8 degrees
new
Pisces.
moon eclipse on the February 26, 2017. And what I want to point out to your audience is this, that whatever happened from 2015 and 2016 now is a conclusion of Virgo Pisces. The axis of Pisces Virgo were involved. They always go westward and they finish. So perhaps Pisces makes us illusionary, confused, where are we going? So February 26th could be like, oh, we get it. I need to follow my own personal vision, my own personal sadhana, which is our spiritual practices, and go to work. And that February 26th has a lot of Pisces in that chart, a lot about letting the old go, as the South Node, which is my specialty, the moon's nodes, comes very close, and of course the eclipses does not happen without the involvement with the moon's nodes, which is the intersection of the sun and the moon. So I would suggest to your audience to really know their moon sign. You mentioned the ascendant, which of course is very important, but also to know the moon so they can follow the eclipses to say, like, well, maybe I want to go to a retreat and finish up what I couldn't take care of, and I want to just let it go.
Right. That's a very good suggestion. I mean, I think getting into a healing environment, into a healing mindset during these times, I think it absolutely, it says in a very subtle and not so subtle way that you are willing to make changes, you're willing to bend, you're looking for a positive outcome of these sorts of events. Looking at that chart for the February 26th eclipse in the U.S. is very interesting. It has the transiting Neptune is at 11 degrees Pisces, directly opposing and on the opposing the Neptune of the United States, and it is unusual because the messaging that's going out and sort of the rhetoric that we're hearing has been very delusional and elusive. I mean, there's been a lot of Don't you think there's been a lot of complicated and confusing talks? And the fact that the president-elect is talking via Twitter, this is a very unusual means of stating policy in 140 characters. This is really about this wake-up call of illusion, sort of snapping out of this fog that we're in.
Yeah, that's why that February 10th eclipse is very close to other, especially in certain prominent figures, but in our own life too. So time will tell how we, on our personal level, will react to the news, how we find ourselves in renewed energy, because it was confusing. And my little joke, I think Mr. Trump was surprised even himself. So
I do too.
What do you want out of our lives, So we want to have we came so far, and we still can go far, but on a different plateau. But we, as individuals, have had a year of 2016 of very dynamic interaction. We thought it was over when Saturn squared Neptune, and people were just running confused. So what I'm suggesting on the February 26th, 2017 eclipse is more like, all right, I found myself, I found my peace again. I found my purpose, because there's so much Pisces. And we sometimes do have to say that other side of the coin, it can be even more confusing. But that, to me, with your audience, would be like, just sit down and reflect on your real, true values, and they will come forth with this kind of, new moon is always a little sneaky because we don't see them. We see the full moon. That is a very beautiful chart in itself. And also with the Mercury and the South Node in Pisces, as they have traveled in the sign of Pisces Virgo, and in May of 2017, I believe May 11th, will then move in and join Aquarius Leo. So the suffering, the confusion, is drug legal? It is not. We will have a more visionary message should we carefully listen to the right message. The other one, like you mentioned with Neptune there, could be confusing still to many. And of course, it's a water sign.
That's the concern. Yeah, I know that's the concern I have. I mean, Neptune in Pisces involved in an eclipse like that with an opposition to the United States, or even if you looked at the chart of Trump, it poses it does bring up the position of, and there's been a lot of talk about the way in which this particular administration communicates. They're very averse to having press conferences so far. And I think you make a very good point, which I've said myself, which was that I think that this candidate was surprised he won himself. I think he was prepared not to win, and he's like, oh my gosh, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it, and he did get it. And now the burden on him as an individual is enormous, because this is probably far harder a job than he ever even thought he had to encounter. I don't think he ever even envisioned what he was in for. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a very rude awakening for him.
I think for any president stepping into that White House,
it takes a certain kind of person to want that. And and I think you have to stop and ask what your motives are. Whereas I think Obama was genuinely motivated, much the way, because he has a strong Aquarius a streak to him. His ascendant is in Aquarius. He's got a very strong humanistic drive. Whereas this particular candidate, the new president-elect, is much more of a self-centered kind of showman who wants just the glory for himself. His motives are not universal, I don't think.
No, I don't know, and it's all about the money, and that's not really humanitarian.
No, it's not.
I mean, we no. So, in that sense, the electoral things and all the retrograde, and the fact that Hillary Clinton has 3 million more voices, votes, which is voices. It's like our individuality shows when we have dinners. You don't talk politics, and it's so hard not to.
Right.
Because it is how a great big country has no potential, but where is it going with its new vision? And so when we step all the way into the August eclipses, which is so close to, so my point is, on February 10th, we would get this message like, wow, it's more messy than we thought, or maybe it's kind of falling to places, which I doubt already February 10th.
Mm-hmm.
But the eclipse on August 21st is right on Donald Trump's ascendant, is a 28 degree eclipse again. So we will know pretty much where we all are heading with our intention to take care of our own self, family, and friends and community.
Right.
Because maybe the mass consciousness was too big for us who have come so far in positive living, alternative health, ways of looking at things, and like, whoa, we just have to be stronger. We just can't lose that vision. I can't change. I can be stronger.
That's true. Right.
I can be stronger.
Yeah. It's interesting because this is that particular eclipse in August also, it brings to light 3 or 4 different key areas. In the United States chart, the U.S.'s Mars is at 28 degrees Leo, according to the Sibley chart that I use. That's exactly where the moon will be and the sun will be on that day of the eclipse. So that is significant, as well as Donald Trump's ascendant. So it's a kind of a perfect storm, I guess. And I'm wondering if by that point in time he may decide that this is too much. He may actually just step down. I could actually see that.
He could step down because of health reasons. Never mind that. I don't know. He was supposed to have a good health record, bill of health. But with Mars on the ascendant, why doesn't he have high blood pressure? Why isn't there?
He may very well. I mean, he is a heavy man.
He just have to. I mean, if we have done astrology for this many years, or he channels it through anger, Mars is what it is, and never mind the whole, derogatory comment against women and sexuality. That's Mars too. Right. So we don't know, as we say, we know something can very well happen, and if that is that he gets really so angry or has such a high blood pressure that he has to take another pill and calm down, something has to happen. But I also feel that February 10th will make us feel like, okay, I'm going to stay away from the news and let them take care of business, because there's nothing we can do more than, yes, we can protest. Yeah, we can fill in the form on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a, I don't know if your audience have paid attention for that August 21st eclipse, which will go through, they call it the Great American Eclipse.
Yeah.
It's going to go through the whole, started at the Pacific on the west coast, and goes through all the way down to South and North Carolina, and it goes off in Africa somewhere. And that hasn't happened for 26 years. So the magnitude of that eclipse goes through a lot of states that might have voted, not voted, whatever, but it is also the significant part of us as astrologers to be open to the two sides of the coin.
Right.
But and also when we continue looking at President Obama's chart, he's very involved with this whole process too. His node is 27, his Uranus, North Node in Leo. He is a Leo. He has Mercury in Leo. So he's not going to go away.
No, I don't think
he's going to stay around. He's going to have his voice heard.
And he's still going to be living in Washington, D.C. because his youngest daughter has 2 more years of school. So he's going to be a very, very powerful advocate, and he's going to be in there trying to shift the dialogue. We're going to be entering into a very, very, in some ways I'm excited to watch it from a historical basis, because I think it's going to be so amazing to see the dynamics between the two parties, as well as the interaction between Obama and him. I mean, we might be in uncharted territories, but I do believe it's going to be a very important time for the country. And I think there may be this eclipse you're talking about in August 21st, when it's 28 Leo, I think is going to have an element of buyer's remorse. I think people may finally have an aha moment where they say, wow, what have we done? And we're in deep trouble now. And I think it won't take that long for them to find out that we maybe, bit off more than we can chew, as did he himself. And
that Mars in Leo too would then be a Mars return for Donald Trump.
Yes, yes.
That would be a Mars return. So what happens to his health? What happens to his anger? What happens to what he can't hold in his, to me, you express yourself to Mercury, of course, but also Mars can't hold it. And many times when he can't answer something, he just makes it up.
Right, exactly.
So maybe his whole, Mars is absolutely blood pressure. So it's kind of interesting to say, and what do we then, Chris, what is our responsibility for our own self to follow from February 10th up to, some closing on February 26th, and of course there is the August, the eclipse before August 21st.
Which would be on August 7th. On August 7th,
August
15
7th,
Aquarius.
Yeah.
Right.
So all of that is also how I see it. When the eclipse season, they are about 19 months, and the 18 plus 6 months, and the nodes also reinforces points, degrees that you might have, the audience might have. Even though we talk about a high degree, 28 degrees in Leo, there is also all the other points that are my first book of the nodes will call the churning process. So purifying to make sure we have the right intention. If you want to protest, if you want to continue working silently behind the scenes, everybody has these choices because it's a very important year, 2017, to me, because 2016 was like a blur.
Right.
And that's why the empowerment of astrology can help us and you and your audience, because that also comes into play when we kind of give up something, and do we surrender to the norm or do we continue protest?
Right.
So
what I think is interesting too in this whole thing that we're looking at, in this sort of this glimpse into the future, is the fact that we have this person that you have been, Trump, that we've been talking about, who has, up to this date, has always been the man in charge. It's always been his will that has won, and he has driven that and pushed that agenda because it's his name, it's his agenda. He has been a power broker of the highest order. Now he has to dance to somebody else's rules, and that is where the blood pressure comes in. That is not easy
for him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting.
It's,
We're talking today with Agneta Borstein, and we're going to take a quick break here. Her website is agnetaborstein.com. It's AgnetaBorstein.com. Agneta Borstein. We're talking about the eclipses coming up in the current year that we're going to be witnessing in 2017. One on February 10th, February 26th, August 7th, and August 21st. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back to continue our discussion. So hang in there. What is your destiny? Where are you going? What is your real purpose? Do you know? Do you want to know? Of course you do. It's your duty to yourself. We are all here for a reason, and we all have great potential. Discover all of this and more with a professional astrology reading. My name is Chris Flisher, and I can help you. Discover your strengths and work on your weaknesses, and live your life to its fullest capacity. Based on your birthday, birthplace, and birth time, an authentic astrology reading will allow you to live your life to the fullest and reveal your true purpose. Only real astrology can give you real information. It is your destiny, and it is your path. Write me at chris@chrisflisher.com and book a reading today, or call me at 978-393-1036. That's 978-393-1036. www.chrisflisher.com.
Astrology is the science of spirit, and it can serve as an invaluable aid in making the difficult choices in life and seeking truth in all the directions we choose. It holds the potential to allow each of us to evolve to our highest potential. It is the logic of the universe, the code of existence, and the pathway to true wisdom. It is our duty to draw from it the instructions for our lives and to live them to our fullest potential. As the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed.
As the world shrinks and our barriers come down, Diverse cultures are striving for harmony, balance, and peace. To ease the transition, we need to expand with color, light, and tolerance. Now, you can become a global citizen and embrace the color and clear spirit with the divine artwork of the mandala. Mandalas are a timeless artistic offering for creating unity, harmony, and peace. My name is Chris Flisher, and I've spent years creating mandalas, and they are now available online at www.turningofthewheel.com. Come and experience the world of color, form, and function with t-shirts, coffee mugs, note cards, and limited edition prints. These vibrant, lively paintings and products express optimism, oneness, and spiritual balance for all who use them. www.turningofthewheel.com. That's www.turningofthewheel.com. And enter a world of possibility and color. Okay, we're back. Welcome to Turning the Wheel again. And we're talking today with Agneta Borstein. We're talking about the eclipses. The eclipses are coming up in 2017. We've got one on February 10th, one on February 26th, and then again on August 7th and August 21st, all of which are happening at very interesting degrees with regard to the United States and with regard to our current president-elect. So when we look at those eclipses, Agneta, which do you think is going to be the most profound? Like you mentioned the one on August 21st, and you know the fact that it's visible in California I think is interesting, because California has a very, very powerful stake in the United States, simply because the fact that they're the largest state. They are the sixth largest economy in the world, so they have quite a bit of sway and muscle behind them. And the governor, Jerry Brown, has said that he will continue his own agenda and go against the agenda of the current government, simply because he says this is what the people want. So I'm wondering how you think that might play out with this eclipse coming up in the 21st of August at 28 degrees Leo.
28. Okay, so first of all, that eclipse being called or named the Great American Eclipse. It will go from the West Coast all the way through the East Coast, visible. You know, as a solar eclipse, we have to have the protective glasses, and we might look at it. I've been seeing a few of them, so that it's going to go down like North or South Carolina at the perfect eclipse. And it's a really good site to look under earthsky.org to get more information if your audience want to look at that effect, because astrologically it's a very powerful time to consolidate what have you done lately. Have we followed from the suffering that February, 2016 was just so confusing with Virgo Pisces axis? That's still so in February 26th eclipse. Then the nodes move into Aquarius Leo in May. Then by August, we have a lot of answers that we just don't really know, Chris. We would like to respect whoever, it's hard to respect at this point, but to observe. There is no way something is just strong. Somehow Saturn continues trining that Leo, it does, and it tries to
I like that trine, because that's a sort of a stabilizing factor.
Correct, yeah. It makes us grounding ourselves to say, and I also feel that most of the outer planets just have to there, like Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Uranus, of course, will go into Aries in 2019, but we still had an enormous shift from 2008 to 2016. It was like, okay, now what? So this eclipse on August 21st, most of the time changes people's lives when they hit in that degree. I would like to say anybody from the later degree of Leo will be affected, and most of the time people's lives change when they hit. Eclipses happen 4 times, sometimes 6 times naturally, but when they hit your head, when they hit your heart, when you hit your feet, they really hit. So the Leo Aquarius is the empowerment of being the royal person that we are allowed to be, creative, positive, shining with power, and not misuse of power, which is the other side of Leo. Then the ego comes in, and then the other stuff comes in. And Aquarius is interesting to say. It is a visionary. It is absolutely the planet of where we see the future and the Aquarian age, that according to most scriptures are here by 2025. That could be another segment, Chris.
Right.
We're moving towards something really big.
Yeah,
nothing is going to stop us. A question, may I just put in, because I had to help some alternative living, styles of gay, lesbian. I had to help them. I said, do you think that's going to change your life? One couple, I said, how long have you been married? And they said, 25 years. I said, how dare you think you're not going to continue loving each other? No matter what they put in the book, what they try to reinforce.
Right.
So we have to be more resilient, more stronger to have our message.
One thing that,
in whatever way.
Right. One thing I find comforting, at least a little bit comforting about that eclipse in August, even though it is the Great American Eclipse, is that it does bring into account the trine to Uranus and to Saturn. So I see that as a sort of a revolution towards a very positive outcome, or a more responsible outcome. So this may be where Saturn comes in and does his job, but he didn't do the last time, which is to hold us accountable and responsible. And by this point in time, we'd have enough to be like 6 months since the inauguration, enough time to get a pretty good idea where things are going. And there could be some real revelations that come as a result and cause a revolution of sorts of some kind. And
absolutely.
That might mean an impeachment or something like that, or, as you mentioned, a health problem.
Right. I would say a health problem, but because the Saturn has been sitting on that August 21st, Saturn 21 degrees, is right on Donald Trump's moon, 21 degrees, and his karma from the past. Like, who was he? What? Not too many people talk about two factors that I know personally, that he went to military school. Why do you send your son to military school? Because
behavioral problems.
And I happen to know on a personal level, let's not get in that, but my son was there for a while. And it is a really rigid school, and they wanted to change. He wanted to say Mr. Trump's university. It's not that other thing that we're talking, and they said no, so the school closed. The other point is, like, we just have to see how the unfoldment affects our daily life, and that is our responsibility, because this is big. Revolutions are big, so if people want to protest on the street, it's lovely, it's great, because that mass consciousness comes forth everywhere you look. And we have the right to say our opinions.
Right, I agree, and I think that's an important distinction. That's why, and in some ways, I'm optimistic. Uranus is a revolution. It is the planet of revolution, of rebellion, of discontent, and the fact that it's in a trine to Saturn, I think, speaks well to a conscious rebellion or revolution towards a greater good, as opposed to one going the other way. I think that life is a paradox filled with extremes, and we live in a dualistic world where we have our negative and our positive, and this might be a jolt that says, okay, we've got to change this before we go so much further. So I'm pretty optimistic about that.
Yeah, and there are presidents that have been impeached, and as it would be that we try not to be politically inclined, but it's so important for the eclectic individuality that we were allowed to grow towards brighter days. And it seems like it was a setback for us. But like you mentioned, setbacks are for us to be even stronger, more positive, and moving forward. And people have their opinions like, oh, no, we're going to not have, whatever they're going to take away for people. I don't think it's going to be that easy.
No, it's not that easy at all. And many of these things are long established, entrenched things. You don't just turn around and say no more Social Security. You don't just do away with Medicare that quickly. These are long deliberations that require a lot of work, and people. They're not just going to happen overnight.
Correct. Yeah.
But it
so
is
that's
pretty exciting. And the thing, I think it's important to note also that this is not a politically motivated discussion. This is we're trying to be objective here. We're not trying to be biased. Our opinions are simply based on what we see mathematically in the charts of the United States and of the eclipses. And this is how astrology works with predictions. We do not involve ourselves in an agenda for one party or the other. This is trying to be objective about what is happening. But when you see charts that are this dramatic, you have to pay attention.
Right. You do, yeah. And then in respect to that astrology, that I guess we had a right time on Donald Trump, and that Mars could not, 3 degrees, it couldn't be closer. And he does have a temper the way we see it. So how does he hold that back in relating to these eclipses that we talk about today? It already starts February 10th, and as of, January 20th, or 21st is in office, so that's just 1 month, and we're going to get a lot of answers. We know how he would act, because we have already seen that for a year, but how we react, how we process our individual power of using astrology in positive ways. And I mentioned earlier that February 26, 2017 is an end of an era of confusion. Mm-hmm. Leo Aquarius goes more into individuality. I will share my knowledge. I will be positive. I will be more creative and forceful in that Leo aspect because of how far we have come. Yeah. And it's impossible to turn back. So that's how I have felt. I have helped clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And you think about when we look at this as a personality character in a person who has a very thin skin, meaning that he's very prone to criticism, very sensitive to criticism.
Yeah.
And he's stepping into the most visible, highly criticized position in the world. There's nobody who gets more scrutiny than the President of the United States. Right. He is going to be every move he makes, he's going to be scrutinized. I think that's going to get under his skin in a major way, and I actually could see him saying, "I can't do this. I'm done." And he'll make some sort of grandstand effort to say it was his choice, and as long as it's under his terms, he'll feel as if he's in charge. It's like if you know you're going to get fired, you say, "Nope, you can't fire me. I'm quitting." Then you have the power.
Yeah, right. You do, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Then the power shifts
almost
back.
Like, yeah, and it's the whole confusion and. We will miss that, the last 8 years, but we also have to be reminded, like we said, we know President Obama has the Aquarius ascendant and, the Leo and the Gemini moon. I was thinking that doesn't really connect to Trump's because it's an early moon in President Obama's chart, but they both have that Leo because they're going to disagree with just about everything.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah.
It'd be curious to see what Obama does as an ex-president and how he can wield his influence and power on the global stage as well as the domestic stage to see what that looks like, because I don't think he's going away that easily. I think he has a vested interest in trying to preserve some of his own things. He may be powerless outside of the White House, but I don't think he's going to be completely without some sort of influence.
But I think also it's a very good point because the eclipses that is the topic of our program today hits President Obama as well. And he has, strength in the Leo, and he doesn't give up easy. So that to me is also part of that. He's very well liked, and that will show when he stays in Washington. Yeah. The fact that he will be invited to certain things, and you just, whoever's going to go to the inauguration ceremony is like, good for them, enjoy, have a great party. But he already has had great parties and great visions with messages, like real messages. And he really did himself in, as far as good changes and not so good changes. That's, the only thing where at times I am so against wars, which I hope everybody is, but some say, oh, it's necessary. But being from Sweden, we have been neutral, and in my heart, I'm neutral. So the only thing that I would be, not in a negative way, but in a cautious way, because of Trump's Mars ascendant, he's ready to fight.
He is.
He always fights. Yeah, and I don't care for that. That's, how we say don't say it because it's a manifestation. So let's say that in the parentheses. But he's got to be careful what he tells people. He's got to be careful. So some people have more diplomatic experiences.
Well, this is something he can't really avoid this. This is part of who he is. This is where he could redirect his energy in a positive way rather than venting as an angry man. If he were to take and express himself as a positive, happy person, but I think the damage is too deep with him. I think he's been tainted. And the thing is, a person who's 70 years old, they're not going to change their tune this quickly.
He is 70. I just realized that. I haven't paid it. He is 70.
Yeah, he's the oldest president
Nothing
ever
wrong
elected.
to be 70. Hey, God bless him for getting there. But it's just, how is he going to survive with these eclipses? Which is, if he had a Saturn return, Saturn was on his axis of Gemini when all this, president candidacy went on, the election. But now it's more prominent because of his ascendant, because it's what we see. And he doesn't go into a little quarter being quiet about what he deals with. He just lets everybody know through Twitter. That's his ascendant. That's his personality.
Yeah,
and of course
he loves that. That's the Gemini trait in him. He loves that. There's something about very Geminian about Twitter. It's just a perfect vehicle for a Gemini. It's
know.
You can see why he latches onto it.
I know. So going back to that is the trine, and how do we use the trine for the positive affirmation for the August 21st eclipse, which we could start to use it earlier. On the August, what is that now? The
August 7th.
August 10th. August 7th. I'm sorry. I have two papers on my desk. That is also, of course, in Leo, as coming through as a full moon. Mars is involved, and we know that is also Saturn is 21. So sometimes the eclipses happens in the spring and the fall, but they move westward, and this time they come early in August, which we go, okay, we take it. So we will know very soon between these eclipses, because they hit, as my rule would be, the moon's node goes through a house, right? And then the eclipses hits the planets in that house. And in that respect, we have tried to be politically correct and not downgrade people's choice, if you will. We are just looking at it as an observation, because the eclipses happen that when they hit, they really hit. And that's my point of kind of calming it. Just step back and look. Let them do the job. And that we, on our individual daily basis, can enjoy what we have created. Mm-hmm. We can enjoy to live in alternative ways of living and, be ourselves unconditionally. And that's freedom about Aquarius and Leo.
Yeah. There's a message there. I think the idea of approaching it, because we're forewarned, we have foreknowledge of this. I think anyone listening, if they don't know their chart intimately, it's worthwhile having your chart done by somebody and having some advice given to you about how to handle it. I think that the idea of healing and meditation and being alone and reflective are all things to have that lend a very positive flavor to an eclipse. You want to have that sort of positive place where you're in a sort of a safe spiritual zone with people that you love around you, and you enter into a state of life where perhaps you shift your priorities or you change the way you think of things. I think it's it can be very, very therapeutic and very valuable to be in the right place at that time.
Correct, and that's good to know. And then have a few days before, as people might seek a new job, is a very good time for that, because eclipses change your life. Yeah. Relationships often comes in Leo, It's about love and different, and don't expect just to, because we couldn't resist to talk some world-renowned news about the political arena. Right. It's also our individual responsibility to follow astrology, as in the only way. People who protest, great, that's Leo Aquarius, but also not forget that the creative part of us is also to find peace within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And those eclipses, we seek to go away on retreats. It's a very powerful time because the soul, the moon, to me that's a soul search, and the sun are like lined up if we just visualize, they are lined up. Otherwise, we would have an eclipse every month. So they are powerful to seek out. Of course, even a romantic vacation would be appropriate.
Yeah,
of
and
course.
The thing is that, like you mentioned, the idea of a job, that could be if you've been pursuing some sort of educational or training or looking to change your life in some way. Eclipses can be very powerful in that way because they sort of bring to you the reward of the hard work you've put in up to date. And so it can be very valuable for that. And I think it's important for people to look at it that way and not run to fear. There's this misconception out there that eclipses, the sky is falling. That goes back to sort of the ancient days where people get the wrong impression. I don't think the impression is accurate for a time like that, and they should be more cognizant of what it looks like in those days and manifest them in ways that are absolutely positive.
Correct, yeah. That's our responsibility when we look at our own charts, our families and clients. Because again, if they hit, and also to reinforce again, if somebody just came in, that the Pisces Virgo axis eclipses have been since 2015, and the last one is on the 26th. So if there's something that wasn't as taken care of, if you will, the Leo Aquarius has more humps and more power to it, and also more up to date where we stand at the moment today. And that will follow that they might also, something can happen in February in your life. You might meet somebody. Well, it can go very fast, as it did happen in my case, because they change, especially when it's the degree, and that can follow through for already August to say like, yeah, this guy seems okay. I'm going to stick this out because there's something churning in your soul, and that you don't have any matter, you don't have any say to the matter, because Eclipses is that powerful in its process of clearing new ways, allowing you to see new visions in related to Aquarius and Leo. And just as in a parenthesis, in 2018, they will follow suit. There will be more eclipses in Leo, Aquarius, and then they move over to Cancer, Capricorn, but that would be another story. But just to say, like, if somebody knew a little astrology, they do go in and they stay for about 19 months in all. It's, it varies. How
I think it's
they
important
fall,
that you know the position in your personal chart and you know the house that it's in, because that's probably where you're going to see the action. And I think that's important to be mindful of that. I've had wonderful experiences on eclipses where my career has really benefited from the eclipses, or introducing myself to other people. It could be a chance encounter, somebody that you meet. Any number of things are possible there that can be very, very positive. But when we look at the mundane impact, I do see it I find it very intriguing that the eclipse of the August 21st one, the one you referred to as the
Great American Eclipse. I don't know who made that name up.
Yeah. I like that terminology, and the fact that it starts in California is really, I think, a very potent is symbolically, because California is sort of the land of the rebel in some ways. It's very much there's no other part of this country that is more American than California. It sort of epitomizes, it's the movie stars, it's the Hollywood, it's the big houses, it's all that. And to have it start there and and California was a state that was not in favor of this administration at all. To see them wield their power. Not. Yeah, it could really be, supposing they secede from the Union.
Right.
We have no idea what
and
to
how
expect.
Many, Oh, it's definitely mundane, because we take, the world at large.
Right.
The eclipses happen, throughout the world. It's just because it happens to be visible on August 21st in America. And I think a lot of people are going to travel to these destinations, and some places are already sold out. So that's just astronomical, but also the fact that people pay attention to the sky and allowing that we know the astrological part of it. It will be strong. It's summertime. It's like it's not the fall, because many times they do fall in the fall. Right. But that's neither here nor there, because they happen, and they come and they go.
But this to happen in the summertime, in you see, if you're in California, generally it's a sunny day. It's going to get dark, and it's going to be really. That's when you really begin to feel the impact of an eclipse. I mean, it's one thing to feel it astrologically, sort of the energy, but it's another thing to see the sky go dark and sort of feel the planet really change. And when you think about the dynamics of what's involved with the alignment, where you take a little tiny planet like the moon and put it in the way of the sun, and it covers just that little spot absolutely perfectly, is just, to me, a wonder.
It is amazing.
It's just a wonder of astronomy. It's a wonder of astrology. It's a wonder of nature. It's nothing more. It's absolutely divine.
Yeah, right. And that's what I have, had kind of. I don't know if I'm going to go and see it. I don't know if we can see it in Massachusetts
you sort of
Connecticut.
made me think about it. I mean, I would almost consider going to see it if I could arrange it, because it's a once in a lifetime event. It's really.
No, it definitely and it hasn't happened for 26 years, and people need something. The kids need something fun. They're scared looking at the news nowadays.
I know.
So they need something fun and focus, and get their glasses out and go, like you said, go out in nature and enjoy.
Yeah.
I think it will be a big thing, and then we hope for the best for everybody's health and all that. But it's very interesting how you did take into that account that people who might have listened and taken some notes from us today, there had been like a little bit of shyness, hesitation to put your resume into this one job. This is very good to be brave as a Leo. The Lion says, I can do this.
Yeah.
And if it didn't happen in February, it can happen in August. It can happen in 2018. But it's the drive of that sun and the moon that is just beautiful.
Yeah, and that can be very motivating.
Moon,
and people sort of gain their footing. They become confident, and they just say, it's like, what have you got to lose? You might as well take a chance at it. And if you have a resume, like you say, and you're looking for new work, or you're involved in a relationship, or you're considering moving to a new house, or having a child, or a child's born in and around that time, they can be hugely influential in the most wonderful way. Just the fact that you may have a eclipse degree at 22 doesn't mean that it's going to be dangerous. It could be a wonderful new way of looking at life.
Absolutely.
So
that's how I timed it. Yeah,
I'm excited by it. Well, anyway, we're fresh out of time. As I knew the hour would go fast. It always does. But we'll have to get you back on, Agneta, and we'll get on, maybe talk on after the eclipses happen. We can look back and see what sort of stuff we saw that came as a result. But it's good to be forewarned, I think. And I think people who don't know how these eclipses will impact you personally, I would suggest contacting Agneta or myself to get an accurate reading about what that looks like. Her website is agnetaborstein.com, 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 and mine is turningofthewheel.com or chrisflisher.com. You can find out either way. I encourage you to reach out and get some information about how these eclipses will impact you, so that you can best use the energy of the universe to make the right moves for your life and have it be a proactive experience rather than a reactive one. I think that's important to remember.
Right. Beautiful.
Anyway, Agneta, thanks so much for coming on today. It's always fun to talk to you, and we will connect again and perhaps continue our discussion further after we have more data and we see where things are going, because we are certainly in for a wonderful time and a fantastically historical moment that we're living in to see how this all unfolds.
Correct, and thank you for inviting me, and Happy New Year.
Same to you. Very good. Always good to talk to you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Very nice, Thank you, Chris.
You've been listening to Turning of the Wheel with your host, Chris Flisher. To schedule a reading with me or to order artwork, you may visit my website at www.turningofthewheel.com. That's www.turningofthewheel.com. Or you can call me at 978-393-1036. Thank you. And as always, be open to possibilities.